What's up, everyone? Kevin here from Skywatcher. Welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We cover everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. It is July 25th, 2025. That's when this episode aired. All of our episodes generally are live, and then they're saved, so you can go back and watch them at any time. Before we get started with our guest today, if you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe. Leave a like on the channel. Lets us know we're doing a good job. If you want to support us a little bit more, you can head over to skywatchusa.com and spend all your hard-earned money on one of our telescopes if you want to know. We do have some stuff on sale right now. I think the wave mounts are on sale at the moment. Yep. So check that out. And then if you want to support us a little bit more, you can go to skywatcher.threadless.com and pick up many of the cool shirts and swag that are on that website. All of it helps us keep this channel a-going. So with that being said, I'm going to bring someone else in who also knows what it's like to have a channel and all the work that goes into it. So our guest today is Dave Farina of Cosmos Safari. If you've been to NEAF, you've probably seen him run around with his camera. I've been on his show before, so there's a whole episode with me. But we flipped the tables now, and we're going to get started with Dave. So good morning, Dave. How you doing?
Doing well. Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for bringing me on. It's really great to be on here and have a chance to talk to your audience.
Yeah. So I met you at NEAF, I think 2 years ago, maybe 3 now. I don't remember, but we met at NEAF.
Yep.
Did a little interview with Dave. There's a lot of people. If you ever go to NEAF, there's more now than I think there's ever been. But there's a lot of people that are running around with cameras and doing interviews and making their YouTube channels. And there's a lot of good ones out there. But yours is excellent. Your production value is excellent. So go check out Cosmos Safari because I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Backtracking a little bit, for those who don't know Dave, he owns Cosmos Safari, but how did you get started in astronomy? I know all of us have a unique intro into this hobby. So how'd you get started into this, and what got you to where Cosmos Safari is what it is nowadays?
Thank you. Well, I mean, to go way back, I grew up in the countryside, so I had pretty dark skies. A little bit of Milky Way was visible when I was a kid. I didn't really know a whole lot about it. My brother and I would sit around and read books, about astronomy and learn a little bit. But there was a good gap kind of like throughout my teenage years where I didn't really have any interest at all. But then I got into college. I ended up going for education, so I'm a teacher. And my first job that I got was to be an Earth and space science teacher, where I actually had a planetarium as part of my job was to run it. And I had to relearn everything. Now, I had taken a few classes during college that were astronomy classes, but to have to be on the other side of the table teaching it, I had to really go back and learn it all myself. And in doing that, I went to a local astronomy club, and I said to them, I have these telescopes that my predecessor had, and I don't have any clue how to use them. And so a few of my now close friends, they helped me to, get the beginnings of, just the how to find your way around and how to use the different types of telescopes and what the different purposes were. And it wasn't long until I got into astrophotography at they were telling me don't do it. But I did it anyway. And within a few years, I started feeling like I, needed to share my knowledge. I really, during the COVID time period, I needed a way of trying to express my interests. It also happened to coincide with the birth of my first child, and I quit being the president of our local club. I had become president already, and I needed some way to kind of get that outreach out there. And I thought, why not make a YouTube channel and just kind of try to record some of it, and hopefully somebody would listen. And there was a good portion of time, maybe 2, 3 years even, where it was like crickets, like talking and no one was listening. But then COVID hit, and it kind of like started to take off. So that was the beginning of it. It wasn't on purpose necessarily. It was just kind of an evolution of me trying to get the word out.
That's kind of how our channel got started too. It was all with COVID, and there was no trade shows. We weren't going anywhere, and we're like, okay, how do we stay involved with our community when we're not going anywhere and no one knows how long this is going to be? So it kind of just happened. I don't think any of us thought it would grow into what it is now, um, but yeah, it reminds me a lot of being in a band, where you really have to put in those early dues where, yeah, you're not talking to anybody, people don't pay attention to it, and then eventually something just catches into the gear and it takes off from there. But it sounds like ours was very similar to how yours got started as well. So
Yep. And there are some very particular videos that I know were high performers early on. One of them being my Andromeda video where it was Deep Sky with Dave
mhm.
was the theme. And I made a number of those videos. I also made an Orion video that was pretty popular. And those two videos really continue even to this day to drive traffic to my channel. And I really try to put out evergreen content that is always relevant. And every year, I can tell when Andromeda starts coming up over the horizon because that video starts getting hits again
Yeah.
as people, are trying to look for it. And basically what I did is there was a four-step process that I always use personally to find things in the night sky. Now, things have changed dramatically and it's a lot easier to find stuff than it used to be with technology, but I think they're still relevant for the vast majority of people getting started who don't necessarily have the technology that some people who have lots of years of experience, have at their disposal.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've had Trevor Jones on, we've had Nico Carver, a lot of the YouTube personalities that are quite popular in the hobby right now. Um, and I've talked to them the same way. I know we've had these discussions on the back end where YouTube is really where everyone goes. I have a friend of mine who calls it YouTube University because you just go there to learn whatever it is that you want to learn. Um, Having done it, and I know you're doing it too, it is not as easy as it looks running a
No.
channel like this. And there's and everyone's format is a little bit different. Trevor does these little 10-minute videos. Nico can do some of these really in-depth reviews. Our format is like a 1 hour live thing, and there's all different kinds of ways. There's the short videos that are really popular right now. There's all types of formats, and there's really no equation to be like your thing will be successful. And it takes a long time to get it going, and successful, big quotes right there for a lot of people. And you've been to NEEF. We've talked about this too, where you see a lot of people who are trying to do very similar things, where it's like they're interviewing people at shows, they're doing their own channel. And I commend anybody who's trying to do it. But as someone who's done this and you've invested quite a bit for the production value of yours as
Right.
well. And there's a big difference between, say, someone who's just getting started maybe on their phone and a little mic. And there's no wrong way to do it. I'm not trying to knock
Sure.
anybody here. And then there's the big, like the magazines and yourself, where you've invested a ton of time and effort and into the equipment to do it. But I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are for someone who wants to get started. It's a lot of work, and I'm not trying to push anybody away. It's like, be prepared, because there's a lot of unknowns when you get into this.
Right. And you mentioned production value, and uh I think really that's me being my biggest critic. And there's been a handful of people over the years who've made comments that, you know, made me feel like, okay, well, maybe I should upgrade this camera or this microphone. But mostly it's been just me. And one of the most, I would say, to be clear, frustrating things is that some of the videos I've put the least effort in have been some of my highest performers. And that's, you look at a video that I know I've put in tons and tons of time into, and then it's just like nobody watches it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it really, you don't know. Like you said, it's a really roll of the dice, whether or not something is going to be successful. And there were, I'd say, you know, many months, if not years, of me doing this where I would basically put out a video in the morning and I would spend the rest of my day trying to, just watch how the performance was going, to my detriment, oftentimes, where I would get frustrated with the results. And, I learned that it's not always instant results. But I also know that when you make a video, if it performs well out the gate, it usually does pretty well overall.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can be rough when you see that happening, especially in
And
real
it's
time.
yeah, and it's a lot. I don't know. Like Trevor's a good friend of mine, so I use it as an example a lot of times. But astrophotography is hard enough as it is, and then
Right.
trying to go out and record it and make a whole video that's entertaining to people is a whole nother challenge. And I would tell people, if you're getting into this, you need to be prepared to get your skin thickened a bit, because it's the internet. People
Yeah.
are
And
going
as
to unload their thoughts on it because they're safe behind their little keyboards. And I've seen people just eviscerate, different topics. We've had it here. We've been grilled on things, and it's hard when you're trying to build, and I'm not trying to complain about it because it's a lot of fun, but
Sure.
you should be prepared if you're going to do this and you really want to make it happen. As you get bigger, you're going to get a lot more critiques on things. Whether those are fair or not fair is a different topic, but you're going to get critiqued
Well,
because
and
everyone has opinions.
I got a comment recently and I kind of just laughed it off. You said you have to kind of learn how to deal with it. Um, it was my Orion video, which was very, very early in this whole, process. The camera that I was using at that time didn't even have autofocus while it was in video. Um, and while I'm making this video, I also didn't realize my audio didn't sound the greatest. And, I had already shot the video. The computer I was using at the time, I couldn't actually watch the video and edit it at the same time. So I'd have to export it to watch it. And, this guy mentioned that my audio quality and my video quality was very bad in this video. And compared to your other videos, this is terrible. What are you doing? And I was like, look at the date, man. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
from 2019. Things have changed so
Yeah.
much, just in the technology, even that I'm able to just get. It's not even close to the same process as it used to be for me. Um, I would literally, have like one of the trigger release buttons. I would use that to focus myself. So I'd stare into the camera, I'd hit the trigger release button until it focused, and then I'd keep my head as still as possible. Because if I went out this just a little bit, I'd be out of focus. It's like, so I had to be like stiff during the whole video, you know? There was a while that I used a teleprompter. In certain cases where I, need to be on message, I will continue to use a teleprompter when I'm here in the studio, because there's a particular number of things that I want to make points of, and I don't have the capacity to keep a bunch of numbers in my head all the time. And when I'm putting out information to my audience, I want to make sure it's accurate. And so um, I've done a little bit more kind of stepping back from that. As I said, I'm a teacher during the day. And so I don't script anything, and I feel comfortable. And I've now, over the past few years, like I'm staring into a camera right now, it doesn't feel weird to me, but at first it did. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was my comfort level. And now I can be like, okay, well, this isn't a big deal. I talk for a living. This is what I do, and I know my stuff. I'm
Yep.
comfortable that I know my stuff. I taught astronomy for 15 years in a planetarium. I can do this. And I had to tell myself that. It's kind of weird to have to do that, but I did. Um, and I have a lot going on outside of this. As you can hear right now, my 7-year-old is knocking on this door.
Yep.
That
I've had that before too. So.
he wants in, and I can't let him in. So you know, there's just life, and keyboard warriors don't always know the best. And to kind of point out what Kevin was saying, if you're getting started with this, just be kind to yourself, um, and realize that it doesn't matter what other people think. If you're doing your best, and it sounds cliche, but if you're doing the best work that you can do, that and you're enjoying yourself, that's what is important. As soon as you let other people get into your head, or as soon as you start to get into your own head, back off a little bit and just take a look at where you came from, especially after, you've been doing it for a little while. Where did you start off and where are you now? And it really, if you allow it to, it puts it in perspective a little bit. Um, so now when I publish a video, does it still bother me? Yeah. But I kind of have to laugh it off and realize, maybe it picks up, maybe it doesn't. But I'm trying to build a whole library full of things that helps somebody.
And that's a big thing that even we try to remember. I'm not sure how you come up with the ideas for videos, but our team like sits down and we hatch out months worth of video. We have a list of topics that we can pull from if we have to.
Right.
Some of those topics were like, this is going to be amazing. And then other topics, it's like, meh. I call them burner episodes where they're just like, it's not like a major topic, but it's a topic that someone hopefully somewhere will find useful. Like your Andromeda video is a great example where it's like, okay,
Right.
well, I already know about Andromeda. I don't need that. Okay, then that's not for you. But there's a lot of people that this is going to be their first fall. They got their telescope for Christmas last year. This is their first year. They're exploring things.
Sure.
Hey, I heard about this one object that I think I can find, and boom, there's your video. And it's helpful to different audiences. And I think that's, as a creator, at times, like you said, you get stuck in your own head about like, well, this isn't going to really hit with this. But it's like, you really have to realize that the audience is very broad. So we have episodes where all of our astrophotographers are super stoked about it because it's right up their alley and super technical. And then we have like our beginning of the month episode, which just talks about here's some fun things in the sky and go try that. And we try to chuck some difficult ones in there. But
Right.
again, we try to speak to the masses. And for anybody who's actually watching, it's very similar. And Dave, you've been a part of it a little bit, where you're working with a company and they built a new product and they spent years on it, and then they release it, and then people are like, well, why'd you do it this way? It's like, maybe you're not the target audience. Like, not
Sure.
everything that either a company's releasing or a creator is releasing for content, it's not catered to one particular group of people. Where it's really focused like that. You have to spread it across a little bit. So you're throwing the net wider to a larger audience.
Right. And I mentioned I've worked with some companies. I've worked with Celestron. I've worked with Simulation Curriculum, who does like Sky Safari and Starry Night and the software. And, it is interesting to kind of see what they do to kind of prepare for their target audience, as you said. And sometimes I've made comments like, well, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? And they're like, well, then it won't, meet the need that we need it to meet. And it kind of like, oh, okay, well, yeah, not everything can be the most premium. Not everything can be, I want the better focuser or something, on a telescope. But that's not the point. The point is to get it in people's hands and they can get started with the hobby, and I have to kind of put myself back in that mindset, that this might be the people's first scope, and they need to hit that price point that works for Christmas,
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly. You're trying to hit some, whether it's a product or a video or whatever, you kind of have to figure out who the target audience is going to be. And yeah, there's going to be things where it's like, well, I watched your last video and that really didn't do anything for me. Okay, well then you
Yep.
weren't the target. But then we'll get like, I really love this video. It's like, great. But
Right.
we're trying to speak to all levels of our hobby. And I'll be the first one to admit I've been doing this for a long time. And when you are really experienced, you kind of forget what it was like to be a beginner. And
Sure.
when you found the Ring Nebula or Andromeda for the first time, and that seems so trivial, or you found this crater on the moon, it's like, that's the moon, big deal, who cares? But you got to make sure when you're a content creator, the wider the audience, the better it is to support your channel and grow it. If you're too focused, you'll end up losing a lot of opportunity there. But we've talked about this on the side too, where when you do create a channel like ours or anybody's, you really kind of have to be fluid, not only with your audience, but with yourself, because you have to give
Sure.
yourself room to evolve, and the channel changes directions. And I know you were talking about it recently where, hey, I think I want to take the channel this way instead of this way, and you kind of change the way you handle it, but you have to give yourself room and grace to adapt into the new branch.
Well, and some of it's out of my control, especially in this particular hobby. I realized fairly early on that I have very limited opportunities to see the night sky myself because of weather conditions. I live in
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania, and for me to have a channel that requires the perfect night sky on a regular basis is challenging, especially with other family obligations and work obligations and things like that. I have to be up to teach the next day. I can't be up till 3 o'clock in the morning. Just can't.
Yeah.
Um, and some people, like you mentioned Trevor Jones, I have no idea how he does it, where he's got Canadian skies and seems to still have all these nights where he can get out. And I really do think it's because he has such focus and priority on this. And he's recently, more recently made it his full-time thing, but that was not always the case. And so I have to commend people who are doing the astrophotography component of the hobby, because it takes a lot of time at night, and you have to work with weather conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of think you mentioned I'm going to kind of take it in a new direction. I'd like to kind of go back to some of my roots, I think, and start to do some content that is more related to how to find things in the night sky, and kind of more the optical stuff a little bit too, which I think, and more like I'm seeing it now. Live stacking is becoming a thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So with some of the more, the smart telescopes, and the live stacking that they're capable of doing now, that's pretty interesting to me. And I've had my chance with a few that I, have got a chance to play with them. And I hope to see, where they take this, because I think that in itself is going to change the hobby and completely maybe change the way I go about this channel.
Yeah, and I think you have to, everyone who wants to do something like this, and let's just separate it from, well, I want to make it a job. It's like, okay, well, we're not talking about, like, I don't get paid to do, like, I get paid by the company, but we just take time out of our Friday and we do the show. It's not like I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting paid directly for just this. It's just something we added to our weekly schedule. Um, you can't go into it being like, I'm going to make money off of this. It's like, you just have to do it because you want to share your knowledge. And I
Right.
think the more genuine and transparent you are, I think that's why a lot of people like Trevor and people like that,
Sure.
where it's like you make it feel like you're just hanging out with your buddy. And that's how we try to do it every Friday here too, where it's just like we're just hanging out like it's a cloudy night at a star party. What do you want to know? Like, oh, I don't know the
Right.
answer to that, or I do. And you're just here to share, and hopefully your knowledge will inspire somebody else to either get into the hobby or go try this object, or you're just trying to grow it. And that's, but you got to be fluid, because if you're not enjoying it, then why are you doing it at all at
Right.
that point?
Right. Every now and then I'll have an opportunity to go out and see people in the public and do an actual star party again. I had a recent opportunity with my local school, and I got to go out and see the kids, and the excitement that kind of got me started with all of this. And that also has helped me kind of remind myself why I got started. And
Mm-hmm.
um, there's been a number of years where I haven't had the opportunity to do that for one reason or another. COVID being the beginnings of that, I lost a lot of my institutional knowledge in the group that I was working with during that time. And then more recently, with just having a family, it's been that focus.
Yeah.
But now as my kids are growing up, I'm finding ways to kind of bring that into their lives, and uh, as they once again continue to knock
All
on
right.
my
I've
door.
got Three
Uh,
kids. They're not here right now, but I
yeah.
know what it's like.
But it's funny because this is why I don't do lives. This is why I don't do lives, and so all my stuff's pre-recorded. But that gives me an opportunity, which I don't necessarily think is a good thing, to edit my content to make it the level of quality that you spoke of. And it's almost this double-edged sword. Whereas I think sometimes if I could just be okay with what it was, um, it might actually be better.
And that I found it's a common thing talking to people who do this is you kind of have to get out of your own way because it's exactly like if you're an astrophotographer, you look at your picture and it's never perfect. It's like I would
Nope.
change this and I would change that and blah 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 blah
Pixel
blah.
peeping.
And we've talked about it here too, where it's like, well, what if we started doing stuff like live from this observatory and that observatory? What if we did this? And then you just think about like, okay, well now I need this computer and I need this equipment and the bill gets bigger and bigger and bigger because you're starting to go for it. You can overreach too quickly.
Sure.
And that's where I think finding whatever your groove is. But I'm glad we don't do pre-recorded stuff. I'm so used to live because I love interacting with everybody here. It's fun to chat with people. We have a lot of regulars that are here every Friday, so we're hanging out with people that we've had on here. So, but like yourself, it's like, oh, I don't like doing live. It's like I don't want to do
I
pre-recorded.
I do like doing live. It's just a
You have to be on your feet because things can go wrong, and there's
sure,
no way to change it. Like
right.
it's out there, so we have to be careful about what we say on here, and especially with like the world environment right now, there's topics that you want to avoid.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, in a pre-recorded segment, you have a lot more control over that. But we've gotten in our own way on that too, where it's like, well, we should do this and we should do that. It's like now we're just
Right.
messing with it too much, and it's never going to be the way that we want. So
And I have so much problems with equipment. I mean, I'll be honest, I struggle with equipment. It's always something for me. And my wife and I have talked for years about like how other people do the quality that they do, because I always get frustrated and waste a bunch of time and have this issue or that issue with, and that's why I'm excited about the smart telescopes, because I don't care about the final image stuff as much as I used to. It was a
yeah,
thing for me for a while, but what I'm interested in is just enjoying myself while I'm outside and hopefully getting other people excited.
yeah, that's
That's it.
that's same thing here. It's like when you really boil it down, it's just we're just trying to share our stuff, and hopefully that encourages you to go out and try something new. Or we didn't want this to be just a big commercial for Skywatcher all the time. That's
Right.
why we've had competitors on. It's like, look, we're all friends at the end of the day. Yeah, they're competing against me, but it's no different than me sitting down playing Uno with
Right.
family.
And I
So
don't necessarily know that I want to do the how many dollars per minute or hour that I have invested into this hobby.
it's probably better not to
Not
think
to.
about it. So
But you don't have to, and that's the beauty of it. You don't have to. It's if you can get yourself out of that trap, and really make sure that you get the most out of the scopes that you have, or binoculars for that matter. I always tell people, they're like, "What telescope should I get?" And like, binoculars.
mm-hmm.
You
I'm
get
terrible
started.
with that, but I 100. It's like get yourself a nice little pair of like 7x50s. You're
See
off
if
to
you
the
keep doing
races
it.
at that point. So,
Put a good 6 months to a year into doing it with that, and see where you're at from there. And if you still are interested, maybe you should look into the next step. But like, I always like that. I have binoculars in my truck every day. And if even and it's daytime stuff too, birds and whatever, they're just little handheld binoculars, and I can be anywhere at any moment and just get them out quick and look at whatever I want to look at and put them back away. And it's always with me.
I think that's a good callback to what you were mentioning earlier, where it's like you kind of got to remember your roots. Um, and I've recently had this as well. Just I was doing astrophotography really heavily, really trying to understand like where our customers are working with, and I like doing anything with telescopes, but I've noticed I've steered further away from the serious astrophotography. I just do that when we're testing equipment. And it's fun to just play with a smart scope, like the Sea
Yep.
Star and Origin, and my kids can do it, and it involves them, and my fiance loves doing it with the Sea Star S30. It just I find that I'm moving away from the super technical stuff and going back to the Dobbs and just the grassroots where it's like I'm in my backyard. And I think some of that is I'm on a screen all day. I'm
Yep.
dealing with technology all day.
Yep.
I'm problem solving other people's problems all day. And I just want to still enjoy my hobby. And burnout is a big thing in this industry. I've found with people too, where it's like, oh, I'm doing this and this and this. And everyone's like, it must be great that you get to do astronomy all the time. It's like, it's
Hmm.
fun, but it does take an effect on the hobby of it. And if you're not careful, you can burn those roots
Right.
really quick and you lose it.
Yeah, I mean, I have the name of my channel, Cosmos Safari, is actually kind of a longer term plan to take the astronomy component that I really enjoy. And then if you go to like my Instagram, you'll see like I do wildlife photography and I do like to travel and I have an RV or a travel trailer. And I want to visit all the national parks. Like that's my goal is to do all that at some point in my life. And I thought, maybe if I can use the channel to kind of make that happen and allow that to happen. And yes, I need to monetize it somehow to do that. Sometime last year, YouTube started paying me for little ads and stuff that it pops up during my videos, and it's nothing
It's
in
very
the grand scheme of
minute
things.
stuff.
But it's nice, to get something, little royalties. I have to pay taxes on it. But there's nothing like that on my channel at this point because, like you mentioned, I don't want to ruin it. Um, I worry if I make everything a video, when do I enjoy my life? You
That's
know,
another big, and I've seen that more of like the people who like record their life and they take you
the
on their thing.
vloggers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, vlogging. I've had people ask, when are you going to do that? And I've thought about that too. And it's a very delicate balance.
Hmm.
And I've seen people who do the vlogging and eventually they just stop because, it's too much. Even
Sure.
talking to Trevor about some of his like videos, Trevor's videos are like 10 minutes long, hours. And
Sure.
I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
because you do all that too, like your NEEF videos, it's like, oh, this interview is like 5 minutes. How many hours did it take to edit that and put it together
For
and go there and shoot and do all of the work
for
to make
Neef,
that video?
actually, believe it or not, it's a little bit faster than making content on my own because the airtime that somebody else is giving me by being the person to talk, uh that's not scripted by anybody. It's just shot, so it's time on set, time at Neef. And then I don't want to necessarily edit their words, so I try not to do editing as much as possible for those, and most of them are one shot,
Mm-hmm.
because of that. Now, I might have to splice things in, like, oh, I forgot to say this or forgot to say that, and I'll add it on. Or somebody, this is a good one. I think did this happen with us? If somebody walks right in front of you,
Couple
while
times
you're,
this
yeah,
year,
yeah,
we literally stopped and we're just like,
ugh. But you got to laugh it off. I mean, this is just what it is. But
they're there, they paid to get in just like everyone
right,
else, and there's a lot of people standing around, and everyone's recording stuff for themselves. So
right.
I get it. So
Yep. So, but and I've kind of got figured out like a basic understanding of, okay, it starts with this little intro, and I use the logo of the company, whoever I'm interviewing, and then it's the video itself, and then it's the exit, and it actually comes together pretty fast. Whereas when it's more of my creative stuff in the backyard or in the studio here, and I want to say something about a product, or as I said, I'm trying to evolve back towards what's up in the night sky and more how to find things. There's a lot of effort that goes into the prep. There's a lot of effort that goes into the editing. And I have a podcast, and you've been on the podcast.
mm-hmm.
Podcast is an hour long, and that one is multicam, and so I want to make sure everybody gets their full face, on the screen, and it's a lot of work, hours and
we
hours and hours.
we have the gear, and we were planning on doing multicam, and using the bench back here and doing like shots from above. We have all of that.
Hmm.
It just adds another level, and it's just me running in the studio. I've got our team
Hmm.
watching the chat and stuff like that, but yeah, the more variables you throw into this thing, the harder it gets. So how
And
much do you want to put up?
early on during COVID, I actually was live streaming. I was doing that. And I have all the gear to be able to live stream. And it's kind of like that's also where I'm trying to go back to. So one of the most recent videos, I haven't even put it out yet. Looking at the Dwarf Lab telescope, and I'm doing multicam, but it's all on my little device over here where I'm selecting it live. And the problem with that though is, you can't go back and edit. And so
Mm-hmm.
like there's a trade-off that you have to deal with, and I just have to be comfortable with
Yeah, and that's just filing the balance. Yeah,
that.
it's all good. It's all good. Um, Someone has a
Once in.
question here. It's a tech. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I'm
Sure.
just gonna go ahead and grab it. Uh, if I may ask a slightly technical question: ISO versus gain, DSLR versus. I'm sorry, he gave Astro camera. Please explain any conversions. So that's not a slightly technical question. That is a very technical question. We could literally do a whole episode on just that topic. ISO, real quick, this is a very watered down version. ISO and gain are pretty much the same thing. You're just adjusting the sensor of the camera's sensitivity. But when you do that, it does affect the well depth of how much signal you can basically get with your sensor. So it's a trade off. Um, DSLR versus Astro camera. DSLRs are more affordable and cost effective to get bigger sensors like crop sensor and full frame. And they're more convenient because they have all the electronics on board. So it can do dark frames and pop them in there and do all that fun stuff. But because they have all the electronics on board the camera body, you're getting more electronic noise, which can then affect your image. And then their filter in front of the sensor is a UV-IR cut, and it's usually balanced for daytime photography to give you really natural colors and not weird, funky stuff. So a lot of people will modify a DSLR camera to get better signal across the visible spectrum, but that costs money. An Astro camera needs a computer to do all of that, but it removes a lot of the electronics from the camera body and allows you to do all the controls from a computer. You can adjust noise. You can control the amount of cooling to reduce your electronic noise. So you're getting a lot better control with an Astro camera. But in order to get those big sensors, you're going to end up paying more because it's a more specialized camera. So a lot of people nowadays just go get an Astro camera like a ZWO or something affordable. If you have a DSLR, that's a decent way to start, but a lot of people eventually gravitate to a dedicated camera system. So, yeah, I know that's a very watered down version. Like I said, we could that's a good topic to do a whole webcast on. But yeah, that's basic. If you're going to spend the money and you're starting on a clean slate, I would just say go get a dedicated Astro camera. Long term, you'll be a lot happier. If you have a DSLR, you're probably going to end up getting a dedicated camera down the road anyway. So rip the Band-Aid off once and go that route. That would be my answer to your technical question. So,
And all the data is there, right? So
yeah.
you can
There's
adjust all of it in post if you shoot raw videos or raw images in a DSLR or a mirrorless. So long as you don't overexpose it and blow it out, where you gather too many photons or too little photons, you can always adjust the ISO
yeah, it's a really
in
good
post.
thing to
So
mention. If you are shooting with a DSLR or mirrorless, like Dave said, make sure it is in RAW. If you're shooting in JPEG, you're basically wasting your time because it's
I shot
compressing the data.
I shot my cos. If you go watch my video on Comet Neowise, I was really excited. I was in the middle of the night, and I did it more like a vlog. I've never really done a whole lot of that. Where I took it with me and I set up my camera and I got everything going. I shot everything in JPEG. the whole thing. And I have no idea how that's even possible. And it wasn't even just JPEG, it was like JPEG medium or small. Like
Oh
it wasn't
boy.
even a full, it wasn't even full resolution. And I was so mad. And I recorded it. And I said, this is a mistake that I'm gonna just put out there, that I'm not perfect. And it actually came out with a decent image still, but I'll never reshoot that. It is what it is. But then we had that comment recently. I can't remember the
Oh yeah,
name
the
of it off.
last year Atlas, uh, one of the Atlases.
And I got a shot of that one, that single image, right? New camera, my good mirrorless that I'm on right now, and in RAW, and a nice newer lens that I have for my mirrorless cameras, and my single image was better than the one that I took. So,
Yeah,
don't get yourself all worked up about too much. Just start shooting.
a lot of times if I'm going to an event and I'm just documenting things or I'm shooting the moon, I'm shooting it to share it. I'll shoot it in JPEG. I'm not going to do a bunch of editing to it. If I'm trying to get a really nice Milky Way shot where I want to be able to process
Hmm.
all of it, or if you're doing video and you know you're going to be running it through editing and stuff, you want to make sure that you are shooting in RAW so you're getting all the data there. So back to that question really quick. If you are going to be using a mirrorless or DSLR, there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't give you the control that a dedicated camera will. Um, do make sure, because you're going to be editing your images, that you are shooting in RAW. Or else you're just going to be, over time, you won't be happy with the format that comes out with it. So, but that's a good
That's the
way. Even when you're doing your videos, I believe you shoot video in whatever the raw format for video is, because you're doing color balance and editing and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Um, you mentioned, Milky Way photography, and that actually is the blend that I have kind of realized, that I have my Cosmos and then my Safari part. You have to go places to do nightscapes. You
Mm-hmm.
can't do a nightscape from your backyard. And I kind of like that, because my goal is to go see stuff. And you can go see a lot of these places that are dark are also beautiful during the daytime. And so you got like, okay, I'm in Grand Canyon National Park now, or I'm in Bryce Canyon, or I'm out in Yellowstone, or in the Grand Tetons. Like, these are beautiful places and they're dark. And it's like I have a goal that's where this eventually goes. Um, and I think I could do that without ruining the daytime stuff,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is the concern.
Yeah. You got, it's a balance. Doing
Because
videos like this is a
family will be
balance.
with me, you know.
Yeah.
Daddy's vlogging right now, is not something I want to make a thing. So,
No, and
but at
that's been
night,
a balance for me too, where it's like, just because we're setting up a telescope doesn't mean daddy's working all the time. I want my kids to enjoy it and get into it to some
right,
extent as well, but I don't want them to just be like, all dad did was work. So,
right. I'm trying to keep them out of it for now, and if they eventually want to get involved, that's their thing.
and
Um,
that's another reason I think you need to figure out what format you want to do. Like if you're vlogging, the way to stay, and Dave, you could elaborate on this as well. Um, if you want a channel to be successful, you need to kind of have a schedule of when new content is released. Our schedule is once a week, it could be once a month, whatever the case may be. But if you look at a lot of the vloggers, it's every day. And
right,
if you're vlogging, you're kind of just sharing your world with the world.
yeah,
And you need to decide if that's what you want to do. I don't share my world with everybody. Like I put on the professional hat here and tell people about my knowledge and my experience, and hopefully it helps somebody. But I don't, people know I'm into fish tanks and guitars and that I have kids and a fiance and stuff, but I don't like to crack that personal wall to the point where you know everything about me, you know my family, and you're asking me questions. I like to keep that world separate at that
sure,
point.
yeah.
But you have to figure out
Well,
what's right for you.
I am the example of what not to do when it comes to consistency in terms of when my scheduled videos come out, because I'm not very good at it. And I'm actually very surprised that my channel has done as well as it has with that in the background, because I'm bad with that. And NEEF is one of my main things per year, because I slow pace it. I know a number of people that do go there. They make a video or two videos maybe, and they put that video out, and it's a bunch of different groups. I like to give everybody, all of the different vendors, their own separate video that you can watch as an audience member to learn about a particular company or product. Um, that's just this format that I've chosen. But what it also allows me to do is it allows me to slowly leak out a video a week, for the next 3 weeks,
I
4 weeks, or
stretch that
whatever.
content.
Exactly. And so, I kind of realized towards, when it was a month or two out after NEAF and I still had NEAF videos to post that maybe I should be publishing these, and I do two or three a week or something like that. But yeah, it's hard, and if there's no, especially if there's nobody watching, you know.
It really takes the wind out of your sails, and you put all that work into it and you get nothing. And I'm not even talking financially. You just get nothing back from the community. And that's no one's
Right,
fault. It sucks because it's like you're just speaking to an empty room.
right. And I really want to give back to the community in other ways. I said, as I've worked with other companies and things like that. And I do some behind the scenes stuff to try to improve products and make them better and like more educational as a teacher. One of the things I want to make sure of is that we're learning as we go and not just, and I appreciate the people who do the pretty picture astrophotography stuff. You're way better at it than me, and I'm not even going to try. What I hope is that you are interested enough to want to dig in and learn more about the objects themselves, like a supernova. How does it form? Why do they occur, in only certain types of stars and things like that. Um, so anything that can kind of bridge the interest to the science for me is where I personally want to take things for my channel. And I've kind of dabbled in equipment for enough time here that I'm realizing it might not be what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it
And there's a
was
lot
a
of
means.
equipment channels out
Yeah,
there.
and I'm not good at it. It's not my thing. I don't care um so much about individual specs as I do what it is you're looking at. And so I hope that people, as they watch my channel over the next few months, years, get to see that, and that I actually practice what I preach a little bit. And I think you'll see some of that coming.
Cool. Um, Question for you,
Yep.
Dave. Who is your favorite NEAF vendor or personality?
That's pretty hard to do. I will say Al Nagler, because Al is one of the reasons NEAF exists.
Mm-hmm.
He is part of the um, local astronomy club. I'm blanking. Rockland Astronomy Club, and he really is great to talk to. Al got me up at Cherry Springs, which I'm wearing the Black Forest Star Party shirt right now. One year where I was mentioning to him because they have an eyepiece attachment that can work with people who have an astigmatism, which I do. So for me, visual astronomy, if I don't keep my glasses on, the stars kind of look like little X's or little crosses. Little spikes come out of them, or some people have to see it as like a little comet um, for each individual star, and it's extremely frustrating. So I have to keep my glasses on. But Al and Telview make this optic that allows you a diopter to adjust for that to your particular prescription. And I mentioned it to him, and he literally said, "Well, give me your glasses." And he took my glasses off, and he went like this and looked through them, and he's like, "Oh, your prescription is approximately whatever." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy knows his stuff."
Yeah.
Um, so I've had a number of conversations with Al. Uh, I'm excited to see some new vendors coming. There's been a number of new vendors over the past few years, and I like to see that. I like to see it, continue and expand. Um, and it just so happens to be right up, a few hours away from me. And that's another reason why I do NEAF is because, I realize that not everybody has the opportunity to get there for one reason or another. But the biggest challenge for a lot of people is distance. Like I'm not going to fly to NEAF. Some people do, but like I'm not going to. And so the fact that I can drive there, I want to document it so that people who are not able to get there get to the experience, you know?
No, it's NEAF is a big deal. I had always dreamed of going to NEAF. I watched all the astronomics videos early on when they were doing live feeds from NEAF. I would watch it like religiously because I wanted to go. Um, but I have a lot of friends being out here in Arizona, a lot of West Coast friends. They'll never go to NEAF,
Right.
and I get to go every year for work.
Right.
So a lot of times I'll bring a wish list. It's like, if you can find this, get it. If you can find that, and I'll bring back a bag of just stuff that people will pay for it, but just bring stuff back because they're not going to go. But it really is it's quite an event to go to if you're into the hobby. I will say something that Dave does and like the magazines will do if you're looking at starting a channel, having been on the other side of it, where at NEAF we're not really doing our webcast thing. We're just Skywatcher here to do our thing, and people come to us like Dave and do interviews. It's way nicer if you reach out ahead of time and ask, hey, can we come by? Is there a time that would work? Because then we work with like Dave, and then Dave can build his schedule around, because there's a bunch of people that Dave wants to hit as well as other YouTube personalities, but we're really busy too. So if you
Right.
reach out ahead of time, it's like, hey, would Sunday work at this time? It's like, yes. And we can kind of build our schedule around when certain interviews are coming. Because if you come by on Saturday, it's like, hey, Kevin, can we do an interview? It's like, uh,
I got a
sure. But
line of people wanting to talk to me.
there's a ton of
Right.
people here that are here to actually ask us questions and stuff like that. And Saturday of all the days is the worst because we're busy. It is the busiest day. So for us to cut a person out of our crew to invest half an hour, there's usually a group of people waiting to talk to us. And we're not saying don't do it,
Right.
but I really appreciate the courtesy of those who do reach out and email us like support or whatever our email is, like, hey, we're going to NEAF. Would it be okay if we set up a time? It just allows us to not only prepare us, but it allows us to respect your time. And usually we'll be like, Sundays are quieter. If you come by mid afternoon, it's a lot quieter. You have kind of the booth more to yourself. And we can give you more of the time that you want for your content. And it's also not taxing our team, and you have a booth full of people. So if you are doing that and you want to interview people, I'm letting you know that most vendors would probably prefer a heads up so they can work around it. So.
Um, I made some mistakes this year at NEAF. In the Saturday filming, I do all my B-roll on Saturday. So if you see me
It
on
looks
a
exciting.
Saturday, I have my gimbal and I'm walking around with the gimbal. But I took a bunch of like B-roll that I ended up not, using. And I think, the other thing that I'm gonna do in the future, and you should remind me of this, Kevin, is what products are people wanting to talk about? Because I took all sorts of B-roll of Skywatcher stuff that we didn't talk about, and it was a waste of my time, and a waste of yours to have me in your booth walking around and trying to uh, take video of things that we weren't going to discuss.
Oh
So,
no, I wouldn't say it's a waste of time. I think it builds
no,
up that, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a certain amount of it, but as you said, there's a lot to see, and so I would rather make sure that the things that are new and the things that are interesting to people are going to show up in the video um, in more so than they did this year. So the B-roll component I'm working on
and that's
personally.
another thing where you just kind of find the flow and the rhythm. This
Right.
is a good question someone asked, but the it's a it's one of those questions that I think a lot of us vendors try to avoid, but there's a professional way to approach it. It says, Dave, any vendor personality to avoid or ignore at NEAF?
Avoid or ignore. Um, Look, I mean, I do my best to keep my personal interests out of things, and honestly, I'm an outsider as far as things go because this is only my thing that I do on the side. I'm a teacher in the daytime, so I don't really know these folks very well. Uh, I have only owned a particular set of products, and so my goal at Neef is to really make sure that I have the opportunity to get content that my audience is interested in. And so whether I like somebody or not, I generally just shoot the video. There are certainly people who are more inclined to be interested in me, though. And I've made the case to many of them that they're actually better on camera than they think. There's a lot of folks who are hesitant to have a camera shoved in their face. Kind of to dovetail off what Kevin said earlier, coming around to the tables and giving people a heads up. There might be somebody in particular in the booth that they would prefer to be the one to talk, or just to know that there's going to be a camera in their face. Because I don't think I'd want to be on video without knowing it was coming.
It prepares you. I used to
Right.
do all of them for with Dennis DeChico. I think that's Sky and Tell, or I can't remember
Yes.
which
He's
magazine, but
actually why I did this, because I used to watch his videos when I was learning. And
mhm.
so Dennis's videos are kind of the inspiration for my Neve videos, to be honest.
No, and it's great because they don't do them anymore. So I feel like there is
Right.
and there's a lot of people that NEAF is happening. I can't go. I never will go. They're just as excited to learn about all the cool new stuff, and they kind of crave videos like that from people like you, where it's like, who's gonna show me the cool new thing?
I watched his videos this year. I watched one of his old videos and I was like, wow, this is actually pretty good. It's very, very well put together. And um for the time when it was shot here, in the early 2000s or whatever, or the 2010 or whatever that I was watching it, they're really, really well put together.
Yeah,
So
they had a
I
good set of team working on that. So,
yeah. So that's my kind
um,
of my inspiration for these.
really quick on that last question. From a professional side of it, having and Dave, I would consider a professional level YouTube personality, especially with the way he edits and works it. Whether you have a big following or not, the way Dave edits is way professional level, and even the way he approaches vendors is way professional. Um, Talking about a professional approach, you do not talk negatively publicly about anybody. It is a very small,
Oh my gosh,
incestuous
yes.
industry. We all know each other. All the vendors know each other. And a lot of times, I would say 90% of us, 95, we're all friends too. So
Yeah.
if there's any negative criticism that filters out in the world or someone's being intrusive, they're going to know. We're going to know. We're going to hear it from each other and be like, this person's a pain. Don't deal with them. And they cause problems. So it's better to just, if you don't like someone, or just keep it to yourself, or maybe talk about that behind closed doors, but you don't put that in writing and you don't say that publicly on a video. It just is not professional. And we talked about this recently in our review video with Richard Wright, where if you want to grow your channel like Dave is doing and we're doing, you need to have a professional presence, and that needs to be on all the time. And because if you want to grow it, we need to know that you're serious about it. And if you're just going to cause problems for people, no one's going to want to work with you, and your channel is as good as dead at that point. So that would be my thing. Is I get where vendors to avoid and ignore, that's a valid question, but in our world it's better to just not. There's always going to be difficult people, but you have to kind of push past that. But if you're going to talk crap about somebody, you better be ready to receive the other end of that. So it just isn't professional. So all right, well, that's pretty much it. That was our hour. So
Wow.
it goes quick. Dave, if they want to know more about Cosmos Safari or your videos, how do they check all that out?
The best way is to just go to cosmossafari.com. That's COSMOS, uh, with two S's in the middle for Cosmos, then Safari.com. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. on whatever, X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it.
I don't use it, so
I haven't touched them really in years. You know, I put out content on a whenever I can basis. And my reviews are generally, I'm gonna say most of the time, if I'm not going to like something, I'm just not gonna review it. I
Mhm.
like this content. I like this stuff. If you see something is not there, it's possibly by omission. Like I am not in the, I don't think negative is the way to go. So I definitely want to provide feedback to the industry, but reviewing content, or I should say, equipment is not my thing. I'm trying to teach people about the hobby. I'm trying to provide people how to approach the hobby in a way that allows them to pace themselves. And, wherever you're at in the hobby, there's always something to learn. I'm learning every day. As I said, I'm not the best at any of this. I just want to get you interested.
That's same boat. So, all right, everyone, that's pretty much it. If I know there's a couple technical questions floating out in the chat, some of these are probably better suited to just go through our support. There's one floating here off topic, but is there anything on the horizon to address the USB 3 speeds through the EQ8R internal hub? Not that I'm aware of. You can use a booster if you want to. But yeah, if you have any technical questions, just email support@skywatchusa.com. We'll be happy to help you there. We did put Dave's website in the chat, so you can head over to Cosmos Safari and check out all that. Go over to the YouTube channel. He's got a bunch of cool videos, and always expect to see more from Dave. And if you do go to NEAF, track him down, say hi. He's a very cool guy to talk to, very laid back. So, but yeah, other than that, everyone, Dave, thanks for being on this morning, taking time out of your day. If you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe, leave a like, and then we will be back next week for a What's Up for the Month episode. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks,
And
Kevin.
yeah, thanks, Dave. And we will see you guys next Friday. So clear skies, everyone. Have a good weekend.